Mick Schumacher, the only son of seven-time F1 world champion Michael, is ready to sit out the 2023 campaign after he was let go by Haas. And while he's got no competitive options for the upcoming season, the Mercedes team principal, Toto Wolff, came forward with a reserve driver role to join hands with the Schumacher family once again. In this video, let's talk about how Wolff is enthusiastic about Schumacher being the perfect fit. First off, Toto Wolff offered Mick a reserve driver role for the 2023 season. We wouldn't be too surprised to hear Mick joining hands with Mercedes after Wolff already said that the driver deserves a place next season. In fact, he wasn't even willing to let the 23-year-old join as a reserve driver, unless he was sure he's got no racing seats for the upcoming season. In fact, things came down to him deciding to sit out the 2023 season. And that's when Wolff said, "Mick is someone that has always been close to our heart because of Michael or the whole Schumacher family," right after the season-ending Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And you gotta admit, he's a pretty talented driver. Right after joining the Ferrari Academy at the start of 2019, he tested for Haas and was handed his senior F1 debut in 2021.
Well, my emotions away from the first Grand Prix are pretty good, pretty settled, to be honest. I think obviously filled with excitement.
However, his 2 seasons featured enough crashes and collisions for the American manufacturer to decide that an offer of a 3rd season with Haas wasn't on the table anymore.
Oh, it let go, hit the Armco, spun around a couple of times and then into the...
And while his team with Ferrari might have come to an end, Wolff said that he'd be a perfect fit for the team. If we're being honest, it seemed like Wolff really wanted to do anything he could to keep Mick on the F1 grid. After all, there's a Schumacher-Mercedes legacy that we're talking about, which the team boss mentioned himself as well. Following up, Mercedes has been hunting for the next reserve driver for a while. At first, Nick De Vries and Stoffel Vandoorne were Mercedes reserve drivers for 2022. But after De Vries moved to AlphaTauri's lineup, there's a spot open for the 2023 season. And not too long ago, Wolff offered the reserve driver role to Daniel Ricciardo. In fact, it started off as a temporary role, implying that he'd replace Lewis Hamilton once his contract ended by the end of the 2023 campaign. But as soon as the rumors made headlines, the 7-time world champion didn't take long to confirm that he's not going anywhere anytime soon. On top of that, he and Wolff are talking about a multi-year contract because they've got their eyes set on a record-breaking 8th world championship. On the other hand, his teammate George Russell is nothing less than the future of Mercedes. In fact, after his impressive and consistent performance throughout the season, along with his first Grand Prix victory,
first season for Mercedes, George Russell, after winning the sprint yesterday, wins the Sao Paulo Grand Prix on a Sunday.
His future at Mercedes doesn't seem to have any lingering threats. So, while there wasn't a future for Ricciardo at Mercedes, he soon got an offer for the same role at Red Bull and decided to take a trip down memory lane and rejoin his old team. Not to mention, Mick Schumacher already has his replacement lined up at Haas. Let's be honest, Mick hasn't done enough in his 2 seasons to convince them to retain him for another season. Nico Hulkenberg is going to be returning to the grid for a full season for the very first time since he was dropped by Renault in 2019. And ever since then, we've seen him twice in substitute appearances for the Aston Martin team. Now he's set to replace the German driver in Haas for the upcoming season. Having said that, Hulkenberg got the chance to revive his career, which lasted for about 9 seasons. And let us tell you that it's also the longest in F1 history for a driver who never managed to score a podium finish. If anything, he grabbed pole position for the non-competitive team, Williams, in Brazil in his debut season back in 2010. So now, he's clearly excited to have the opportunity to return to the F1 grid. In fact, he's even regarded as a highly talented driver for whom results never really materialized. And let's not forget that it was mostly because of his own errors as well. Remember the time he crashed out in the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix while he was fighting for the lead with Lewis Hamilton's McLaren? Adding to the list, he also missed out on potential podiums for Renault after his mistakes in Azerbaijan in 2017 and Germany in 2019. Coming up, Mick hasn't left the team on good terms. If anything, he's been pretty clear about how he was pretty disappointed about the decision not to renew his contract at Haas. And even though that came after a series of heavy crashes, he believes that he steadily improved and definitely deserves a place in Formula 1. Honestly, that's something a lot of other influential people at F1 believe as well, especially Toto Wolff. In fact, there's something you need to know. Haas boss Günther Steiner simply told Mick he wasn't going to be on the team for the upcoming season in the hotel lobby. It turns out, they never entered serious negotiations about a new contract in the first place, and his impending exit wasn't a secret in the paddock at the F1 Brazilian Grand Prix. If anything, everyone knew about it, except for the German driver himself. And that probably explains why he isn't on good terms with the Steiner, because he even passed up the opportunity to pay tribute to the team principal as he was leaving the team. And if we're being being honest, it wasn't even surprising. After all, he was being replaced at the end of the season, making this a turning point for his F1 career. Adding to that, Steiner and team owner Gene Haas had already gone over everything before making this decision. Let's face it, during the entire campaign, Schumacher skyrocketed the costs of crash damage to the cars he was driving. On top of that, he was also outscored 25 points to 12 by his teammate Kevin Magnussen. What's more, his relationship with Steiner hasn't been so great. When asked about it, Schumacher described it as an okay relationship, saying that it's probably going to stay this way. In fact, let's just say that reporters have even tried to ask him how supportive the 57-year-old Italian must have been, and in response, he simply preferred to talk about how supportive Sebastian Vettel has been instead. This wasn't so subtle either. His actual reply to the very question was literally, "I had Sebastian's backing." And even though he went on about how he's happy, with all the open communication between the team and everything, it's pretty clear how he feels about Steiner. Either way, he feels he's improved quite a lot, especially comparing his performance to the beginning of the year. But sadly, it wasn't enough. And coming back to Vettel, he definitely formed a close bond with the 23-year-old in the paddock over the 2 years. Let's just say there were definitely some personal circumstances involved in that too. In fact, Michael Schumacher was literally the boyhood hero of Vettel, and since he was obviously unable to attend races himself, the Aston Martin driver stepped forward to take something of a mentoring role to Mick. And when asked about how he supported the German driver, he said, "All I can say is his words moved me and were very helpful at a moment like this." Finally, this is definitely the turning point in Mick's F1 career. First, he won the F2 championship. Then he joined Haas for 2021 to race alongside Nikita Mazepin, only to lose his racing seat for the 2023 campaign, with hardly any competitive options left. In fact, this year hasn't been so great for him anyway. Alongside Magnussen, he scored his first points at Silverstone with 8th, only to follow that up with 6th at the next race in Australia. But that was all there was to it, because ever since then, he hasn't been able to score and literally contributed less than a third of Haas's total points tally. On top of that, he's got several crashes under his name, which definitely skyrocketed their expenses. And while the team's thankful for the German driver's contribution over the past 2 years, they've decided it's time to let him go. At the same time, let's not forget that he's known for his pedigree in junior categories, and over time, he's only gotten better. But now's the time for him to decide his future at Formula One. Since he doesn't have a racing seat anymore, how's a reserve driver role going to impact his future in the competitive sport? Will he be able to continue on his father's legacy? Only time will tell. Either way, this is the turning point for his F1 career, because even though he's going to be associated with a competitive team, it still isn't a racing seat. On the other hand, as he said, his fire burns for Formula One, and he's going to keep fighting to return to the starting grid. That's a wrap for this video. What's your take on Toto Wolff's enthusiasm for Mick Schumacher joining the team? Do you think he has a future at Mercedes? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.